So in this video, I want to show you some examples of students who did some nice work with the assignment that you're going to do this week, light as subject. So on this week, you should be going on a light safari. That is, you should be maybe carrying your camera with you, paying attention all day long, noticing areas where light might be intriguing. You don't have to leave your house for this, although it can help. This is this beautiful nighttime scene. And by the way, I believe this photographer took this handheld, and you can see just this wonderful, the warmth of the light in the trees, even the light coming back from this alley. It is the light that makes this scene exciting. This photograph, I think, is up in the gallery at this very moment. Unfortunately, the gallery is closed. This was a morning where we had a really quick, spectacular hailstorm, and this student stepped out on his back porch and noticed this wonderful light coming through and casting these great shadows onto the hail. Really a wonderful example. So it's a nice scene, but imagine it without the light. Without the light, it might not be quite so interesting. And that's one of the things you want to think about. Is the light what is making this scene really, really spectacular? Is it the light that I look at first? That's what you're after in your assignment this week. This is just an ordinary bathtub with cleaning bottles next to it, but that marvelous shadow of hard light that cuts across the right is really, really amazing, and across the towels at the top. I think this is also up in the gallery right now. This student was actually, I believe, was on vacation and just noticed this wonderful stripe of light coming across. One thing I love about this is that we have this strip of hard light with the little shadows in between, but then there's a lot of light bouncing around, and you have this wonderful soft light that's coming from the side and really showing you the texture of the sheets behind. Very simple blossoms on the ground, wonderful sharp shadows. Notice the difference that the subject that is closer to the ground, the shadow that's closer to the ground, is very sharp, and then there's something behind it, another fence, and the farther away it gets, the softer it is. So you have that wonderful contrast between the two. Beautiful blinds inspired by Uta Barth. Again, blinds are a great choice. Pay attention to your framing, see if you can really capture the magic of that. This is a very subtle light as subject that I really loved. This student noticed in this parking garage that the lights on the two different levels had different colors, and made a simple photograph of that. So it's the light, the subtlety, the coolness, the warmth, and the framing all made this a very interesting photo, and definitely light as subject. The shadow of a plant. Another shadow of a plant. This is something to watch out for. I noticed in my own house that there's certain times of days when the curtains will get really fabulous looking, or there'll be this really great shadow in a corner, and it happens again and again every day at that time. So if you pay attention for it, I know that we haven't had a lot of sunlight recently, but we should have some more. Just pay attention and keep an eye out for those interesting situations. Now this student, this is the only portrait I believe I have in this slideshow. She was really interested in experimenting, and so she took, I believe it was an iPad and an iPhone, and she set the flashlight to color. So she didn't use a flash, she just cast color with these very, very subtle mediums, just cast it onto her little sister's face, blue on one side and red on the other. Really beautiful. So this is actually a very soft light because the light sources are big and close, but with these different colors. So you can definitely play. Light coming through this wonderful brick glass window. Very subtle light just falling on the metal and the sidewalk. I love the way that metal, very, very reflective surface just pops up in the middle of this scene. Doesn't have to be dramatic, This student just took a picture of the texture and the form of this leather jacket, illuminated by this very wonderful soft light. More blinds. And you know, I can't quite remember what this was, but this student photographed, gosh, it's some kind of a light object, and I can't remember what it was, but really, really fun and imaginative. Light photo of lights. This is a great example of a scene that would be pretty dull probably without the light, but because of those wonderful dramatic shadows, this becomes very intriguing. Long exposure at night, so we get those nice light trails. If you can get out and do something like this, that's great. Again, a simple domestic scene, just this time of day. There's that wonderful light that comes through and illuminates the utensils in the corner. So it doesn't have to be an extraordinary scene. This is quite ordinary. Oh, now this was fun if you want to get ambitious. This student had some light wands, and he played with some long exposures, and he did this about 20 times until he got the framing exactly right. This is also up in the gallery at the present moment. Hopefully we'll get to go back there someday. Oh, I love this. This was taken in San Francisco from up above. And I love that he recognized that there's just this shaft of light coming through. This is such an urban scene. What's really quite special about this is that it is exposed so that we can see all the details in the shadows. We can see actually a great deal of reflected light off of the windows here. If you look closer, you'll see a lot of extra light. But it's this wonderful shaft of light that comes through that is really the subject of the photo. Orchard, just after a rain. Oh, I love this. I mean, the most ordinary scenes or the most unexpected scenes can be very intriguing, especially if you try taking them at a different time of day. Backlit rose, looks like it's glittering. Morning or evening sun coming through the trees. This was really fun. This student just looked up and noticed this backlighting and got this wonderful little flare. And now do be careful about that because you can damage your image sensor if you do this too long, but this was really a wonderful spontaneous shot. Light doesn't have to be hard or dramatic. This is this dusk shot. The light is extremely soft and somewhat weak, actually, probably a little bit of a longer exposure because of the dusk, and it just gives this wonderful, soft, warm glow over the scene. I love this. This is really inspired by the Stephen Shore photograph of the drive-in, the lights of a gas station. Very ordinary, but become very extraordinary in a photograph. Another urban scene. Dusk, clouds, always a favorite. This was an interesting one, and I wanted to show it because it's really offbeat. It's got these wonderful sun flares. It has light sort of just glancing through this scene with this slightly out of focus figure in the foreground. It's really imaginative and a little bit different. Now, the sun flares are fun. You do need to be careful, as I mentioned before. If you have your camera looking into the sun like that to the point where you have sun flares, if you do that too long, that sun can damage your image sensor because it's coming in at this refracted direction into your camera. But if you do it quickly, really can have a wonderful dramatic effect. Very subtle, warm light. I love this. Just, just literally photograph the light that you see. Just isolate everything else out. Oh, this is lovely. Now, it's hard to see on the screen, but this is a shaft of light from a doorway, and you can see just hints of detail in the area around. Backlit flower. Another shaft of light. And that is it. So I hope that gives you some inspiration and some ideas for your assignment this week.